Chemical and Physical by Brian Cherifi and Ben Atkinson. In this presentation, I'm going to be going over many physical and chemical changes and their different properties. What are physical properties? A physical property is any property that can be touched and measured as a volume, mass, and a density. For example, hardness is a property. Hardness is one of the most basic types of physical properties there are, and all the objects in the picture have some type of hardness. In this picture, to the right, you'll see that it is a mountain range and it is full of rocks and mountains and all sorts of grasses and plants. These are physical because there are no molecular changes or reconstruction of the atoms of the rocks or substances whatsoever. Viscosity is another example. Viscosity is the measurement of how well the liquid and gas will flow. In the pictures are both examples of viscosities of a liquid and a gas. On the right, you'll see two liquids being poured out of a cylinder. On the left, you'll see a gas that's getting released out of some sort of vial. The movement of the liquids or gases are physical because there is no changing of their atoms. They are still the same liquid or gas that they were before they were being poured or sprayed out of their containers. Length. Length is measurement of how long an object is. So, you know what length is. Really, there is no change at all. It's one of the most physical properties there are. Luster. Luster is the way light interacts with an object or mineral rock. On the left, you'll see there is a very shiny mineral. It looks like pyronite or possibly gold, and it has a very shiny luster once exposed to light, excuse me. And on the right, there is a very dull rock that doesn't have much luster at all compared to the one on the left. What is a physical change? A physical change is something that can be reversed and may have gone through a phase change. Also, it can change the appearance of that object. So, for example, if I were to take a piece of Play-Doh, a solid piece of Play-Doh, and mush it around in my hands, that is a physical change, not a chemical change, because the Play-Doh is still Play-Doh. It is just in a different form/shape. Crushing a can, for example. Crushing a can will change the look, but not the chemical composition, and the molecules will act the same. So even though you crush a can in your hands, the can may become more condensed, and it will become sharper maybe if you popped out the sides, but it is still the same can, it's just in a different shape. The chemical molecules were not tampered with at all, and it is still the same can. Boiling water. When you boil water, it is going through a phase change, which doesn't change the chemical composition, but just the way the molecules behave. Okay, so this is a very good example because water, as you would think, when boiled, oh, look at the bubbles, it must be of chemical change. But no, it is actually physical because that smoke up here in reality is just water vapor, meaning that it is water that was heated to a certain temperature, so the molecules decided to go out into air. Really, it's still water, just behaving in a different way. Shattering a glass. When someone shatters a glass, it only changes its appearance of 1,000 broken pieces instead of one piece of glass. All are still the same, such as the material it is made of and the behavior of the molecules. So whether you have 100 pieces of glass or one piece of glass, they're still the same molecule structure and they are the same object. It's just the different amount of quantity you have of the item. So for example, if I had a cookie and I broke the cookie in half, I would be left with two pieces of cookie. See, the cookies would still be made of the same substance, it's just that they would be two different pieces now. There was no chemical rearrangement for this to occur. All that happened was I simply split the object in half, meaning it is a physical change. Mechanical weathering is also a physical change because it only changes the look of the stone or object. Now, mechanical weathering is an oddball because normally in order for something to be a physical change, it should be reversible. Mechanical weathering or erosion is not reversible, but the rock did not change its substance, meaning it is still the same old rock, and it just changed the look of the object. So the molecules were not scattered around or it was not changed into a completely different rock. So it wasn't turned into a TV randomly. It is still the same old rock, just in a different form. Now, what are chemical changes? Chemical changes can't be determined just by viewing or touching it. The chemical's internal structure must be affected, such as an endo or exothermic reaction, and also a release of an odor. Also, the chemical change is irreversible when done. Rusting, for example. Oxidation is the result of when iron and oxygen react together to create rust. Well, if anybody has ever went to the Statue of Liberty, anybody watching this presentation, you'll notice that it's green. But it wasn't always green. It used to be the same color as a penny. Because the Statue of Liberty is made of copper, once it was exposed to oxygen, over time it eventually turned green. And this is a chemical reaction, or a chemical property, because it cannot reverse itself. That statue is staying green forever. It won't magically turn into copper color one day. It's done. Change in odor. Change in odor can be a smelly reaction. So for example, sulfur when exposed to an open flame. Sulfur by itself is not that bad of doesn't have that bad of an odor, but once exposed to an open flame, it smells like rotten eggs. This is due to the chemical reaction of the sulfur once exposed to the flame, because that is just how the molecules of the sulfur are made. Fermentation. This is when the yeast or organisms can convert the sugars into new products. This is chemical because once the sugars are converted into new products, there is no going back. They cannot be reversed, meaning the products you put into making the glucose or whatever is being made in this process, it cannot be reversed. So whatever comes out comes out. You can't split whatever happened before. Photosynthesis. This is the process of plants collecting sunlight and oxygen and water. And no, excuse me, not oxygen, carbon dioxide. And this usually makes glucose for the plant, and glucose is what plants use to survive. Now, this is chemical because it is irreversible. Once the plant takes in all its materials to make glucose, you cannot put the glucose back into the plant to make carbon dioxide and sunlight. It's just not possible. And water. You can't do that. So it's a one-way street and then you're done. It's irreversible. Chemical properties. Chemical properties are characteristics that give an object or substance the ability or inability to do something. Ability to burn, or flammability. This is how easy an object or substance can be set on fire or ignited. Now, this is chemical because it depends on what type of object you have. So, for example, if you were to have a paper towel, that would burn very fast, or a piece of paper that tends to burn very fast compared to a piece of wood or uh, or a tree. Depending on the chemical composition of the object you have, the burning will be slower or faster. Ability to decompose. This is when an object decays into simpler matter that can help the environment. On the right, you'll see a picture of two apples. On the right of the picture, you'll see a brown apple with a hole in it on the top, and on the left, you'll see a perfectly fine looking apple. The one on the right is actually decomposing, and this is because somebody made a hole in the apple and then exposed it to oxygen or left it out. Whereas the apple on the left looks perfect because it has no punctures and it it has been preserved. Now the apple on the right cannot be reversed. It will forever decompose and it will continue to decompose until it turns into matter for the environment and it will just go away. The ability to rust. Ability to rust is a property that only objects with iron or metal have. Now, the ability to rust, it some people would say it's reversible because once somebody finds a rusty object, all they have to do is scrape off the rust and it looks good as new. But in reality, you are just scraping off the rust, meaning you're actually taking off the substance. Whereas you're not reversing the action of rusting. All you're doing is taking off that excess rust, which used to be part of the metal or iron. So the rusting is not reversible, and this makes it a chemical property. Toxicity. This is the property which an object or substance can harm a human or animal with poison or toxin. So, if a human or animal is exposed to a specific poison, depending on what it would weaken their body and soon it would eventually kill off some cells, and the killing of those cells is irreversible. And if the animal or object or subject were to die off, then its death would be irreversible and we would not be able to bring it back to life because the toxicity has killed off whatever cells it's killed off or killed off any animals it's killed off because it is an irreversible action. Thanks for watching. We'd like to shout out Google Images for all our pictures. That's it.